Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode today. Come on in, get comfy, hang out with us. We're excited that you could be anywhere on the web with us, but you are here celebrating another episode of the show today. I'd like to invite you to take a minute, click the love button and the share button so that more people can enjoy this show and children screaming with us today. My name is Jessica Dugas, intuitive mentor and energy healer.
And my name is Donna Brown, and I'm a holistic wellness practitioner, and this is The Breakthrough. It's a spiritual view for your soul and mind where we dig deep on today's spiritual hot topics and inspire you with stories of those breakthrough moments that will change our lives.
So I am curious how many of you have ever felt like you had some intuition coming up, you had your gut was nudging at you a little bit and you just pushed that sucker down and ignored it. It was like, not now. I would love to know if that's ever been you below. Our guest today is my friend Nicola Humber, and she is an author and a coach and a hypnotherapist, and she is amazing. And I am excited for her to share with us today her breakthrough moment of when she listened to that little voice, that gut instinct, that intuition. And I know that this is going to be a show that everybody is going to want to that's going to be able to relate to today. So make sure you hit that share button if you haven't done so already. But first, we have to get to our hot topics for today. And it's a good one. It's a timely one. So first, we're going to welcome our two panelists that are joining us today. We have the fabulous declutter coach and consultant, Heather Clark, with us today. Everybody hit the heart button for Heather. And then we have the always beautiful Jane of All Things meditation teacher, photographer, designer, and all of that juicy stuff. Miss Tara Abram is with us today. Whoop, whoop.
Juicy. Whoop, whoop.
Tara's here. Really glad you guys are here today. And I have my gigantic sage stick for our topic today. Donna, what are we talking about?
Well, so today, does everybody know what's happening today? Well, this evening, actually, technically speaking. But we will be in Mercury retrograde. So we are going to be talking today about the wonderful, loving, supportive energy that Mercury retrograde provides us. How do you like that? Was that positive?
It was. It was. And listen, so I got up this morning actually and decided that that's what was going to be our topic today, because it's so funny that technically we're not even in Mercury retrograde until later tonight, and already all over social media the propaganda has started. It's like, are you feeling it? Do you need support?
Are you struggling to talk today?
How okay, is your computer working? Like infomercials or something.
It's crazy. And so I'm going through social media this morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is worse than watching the news. It's already like this doom and gloom of like womp womp.
Where that infomercial with the side effects are longer than the actual commercial itself.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So I had gone and I was trying to find a explanation, a textbook explanation to give the folks that are watching in case there's anybody watching going, what the hell is that anyway? So I found, of all places, I found an article on time.com. Okay, so Time magazine we're talking about here. So it says, and I'm going to have to stop myself from giggling through this. When the planet Mercury enters apparent retrograde motion, that marks the beginning of a span of misfortune down on Earth. Okay. At least that is. Oh man. At least that is, according to proponents of astrology who have made the phrase, quote, Mercury in retrograde, or more grammatically correct, Mercury retrograde, an increasingly buzzy one over the last few years. Retrograde motion, and this was all I was looking for, but I got the rest of this very humorous article here. Retrograde motion is when a planet appears when observed from Earth to reverse direction. This happens due to an optical illusion caused by differences in orbit. In the realm of astrology, retrograde motion has negative connotations. Because Mercury is the planet said to rule communication, those who are astrologically inclined expect frequent misunderstandings, scheduling problems, and disagreements with friends during this period. Now, I don't care whether you are woo-woo or not. If you expect something to happen, guess what, my friends?
It's going to happen.
I don't care if it's retrograde or not. That's just the way it works, right?
It's going to happen. But isn't the whole purpose of the retrograde really for us to go internal and kind of look at things internally that we're working on?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that really what you're supposed to be doing when something goes retrograde or a planet goes retrograde, right? So
yeah, I think a lot of people, though, based on this, when it goes retrograde, they need to work on their positive attitude.
Well, because Mercury's about what? Technology, communication, something else. I don't know. I really don't know. I just know everybody talks about technology going crazy. And it's funny because I was actually born under Mercury being retrograde. So I typically don't have a whole lot of Mercury retrograde issues, or maybe I just don't expect to have them, so I don't think about it. I don't know. Which is it?
Bingo.
That's it. It's you don't expect them to happen, so they're not going to happen because you're not focusing on that. Because you're like, if something goes wrong, you're like, oh, whatever. You don't blame it on, something else. Where it's like, you know what, computers and things have glitches all the time, whether it's Mercury retrograde or not.
Right.
But yeah, it was. I will say, I'm going to say this on live too, because I just put it in the chat. For a moment there, all of a sudden, you guys just went quiet. I couldn't hear what anyone was saying.
Mercury retrograde.
It was just funny. I was like,
I'm not thinking that. I said very nice, positive things in the beginning.
oh, there you go. Okay, well, I laughed, like internally, I'm laughing, like, whatever. I'm like, I don't think this because of Mercury retrograde. Why can't I say that word?
Because it's Mercury retrograde.
My communication.
And that's communication, right? Same with dog.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I don't believe it. Just because, it's just the unstable internet. That's all.
What do you think, Tara?
Well, I've always been taught it's a time to go back to things that weren't completed before. So if there are things that you have been working on or you started a while ago, it's a good time to go back and complete those because it's something that you already started. I don't know.
I like that way, actually.
Sometimes.
I'm taking that.
Yeah.
I'm taking that one.
Like you don't need to start something new, but you can complete things that you maybe haven't yet or wanted to.
I like that way. See, I like that. Yeah, that one's so much better than that the time makes it. The world's gonna end.
So you like the Time article, Heather? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I was saying I like Tara's version of going back and finishing what you've started.
Well, and this one's like crazy too, right? Because I think we've got 2 planets shifting. So it's like also they go retrograde, they have to stop and then they got to start moving again in the direction they're going. So, that's where it's like, I think this energy is a little bit
crazy.
Which way are we going? Are we going this way or are we going that way?
Oh, good. I feel like that too.
Yeah, we have Venus going direct today. Which means it looked like it was spinning backwards for a while, and now it's going to look like it's spinning forwards again. And so that has been an interesting time over the last little while because, a lot of people, like we said, in the spiritual world, kind of on social media, we hear a lot about Mercury retrograde, but we don't talk about a lot of the energetic effects of some of the other planets. I mean, you hear a little bit, but not nearly as much as the fame the Mercury gets. But this has been a challenging few weeks for a lot of people with Venus in retrograde and really bringing a lot to light in relationships, be it love relationships, networking relationships, friendships, whatever. That's what Venus is about, the love and relationships. So it's been a really interesting few weeks. For sure. And I think, so the end of this, not the end, but the other part of this article says the frequency makes it an ideal scapegoat for any sort of misfortune. And that's like what Heather was talking about, where, it's a funny joke to anytime anything breaks down or you can't talk right or anything happens wrong in your world, it's, oh, just Mercury retrograde. Just
Well, because it's being able to find an excuse as opposed to just taking it and accepting it as your own. Like, no, this is happening because, I just can't speak, or this is happening because whatever. Like it's, oh, I can blame it on somebody else. I'm not going to take, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. I mean, it's taking the easy way out, right? It's like, we're really good at that. I feel like as humans, pointing the finger, whether it's at somebody else or something else. And at least because we're all, spiritual as all get out here, it's so much nicer to point the finger at a planet that can't fight back than a person.
Oh no, it'll fight back. It'll just fight back through your computer and through your phone.
And your voice. And
The show will just disappear now. Just watch.
Oh my gosh. Yes, we're all going to be like transported to another planet now.
Oh my goodness.
maybe we'll go to Mercury itself.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Go broadcast
You're
on
in
Mars.
trouble. Somebody's going to the principal's office today. It's not me.
It's not me. I'm still embracing my inner good girl.
Right? Oh my gosh. So it's really, here's the thing. So if you feel like you're bummed already, first of all, I want to express to you that the actual retrograde doesn't happen until later tonight. So you need to blame it on something else. And something that has my back on that is a website called www.ismercuryinretrograde.com. This is not a joke. This is not a joke.
Oh my God, they've made a site about that. That's entertaining.
You go to the website and I will point out, I'm going to see if this works because I've never actually done this before, but I am going to share the screen for everybody to see, because if you go to this website right now, let me see if I can share it. Okay.
Are you trying something new technical on?
I am.
I know, on Mercury retrograde.
I'm pushing the boundaries, people.
She's a brave one. She's
Okay.
brave.
I'm about to be brave. I want you to see this. You ready? If
Yeah.
you go to this website right now and say, is Mercury in retrograde?
Should we
It
drum
says,
roll?
no, something else must be bumming you out.
Okay, well then explain to me the whole 10 days before Mercury goes in retrograde, when you're in that whole shadow where it's calming or getting to the stopping point to go backwards, because that's when they say people really start feeling it. I don't know. I'm just asking the question. I say that's when people really must start feeling it.
It's like anything else. I mean, my personal belief in studying astrology is that, I mean, it's like when I teach about the lunar cycle. When we have the peak of the moon, it doesn't mean you don't necessarily feel it leading up to it and afterwards as well. Like, it's not just at the peak. The energy of the planets and the energy out there, period, doesn't just start and stop with one thing. It's a flow. I think the biggest thing though is not like, my client group knows that even when I come on to talk about current astrology, I literally pull it up on my computer as I'm going to talk about it, because I don't see the value in freaking out for 10 days up until an occurrence. I just don't. I think that we can drive ourselves into a rabbit hole, Donna.
Yes.
But I think it can be a good check-in sometimes. Like, I'll tell you, I've been feeling the energy the past couple of days. So I had, Jessica, was your ringer going off a couple times? I'm like, where is everything located right now? But then I check in and I'm like, oh, right.
Makes sense.
I'm good. I was like, yeah, that's why I woke up today. Okay, just wait a few days, it'll be all good.
Yeah, I mean, it can,
Right.
to look at it can give you it's like when you look at your birth chart or your natal chart, it can give you a sense of, oh, I'm not losing my mind after all. But I mean,
Not for this reason anyways.
but I mean, thinking about it in that sense, we don't want to look at it and ever go in the opposite direction either. Like, for example, with that website, if someone has themselves convinced that all their stuff is going awry because it's Mercury retrograde, and then they go to that website and they're like, oh, It's not though. Like that you could go the opposite way in it. So that's why I think that there's value in looking at it for confirmation as to what you're experiencing. But I also think that people need to remember that our mindset, our circumstances, the other people we're around, that there's a lot that impacts our current situation, right? So I think that that's important to remember too. But happy Mercury retrograde, everybody. May your next few weeks be blessed with little technical difficulties as possible.
And it's lasting until what, December 6th or something?
It's into December. Yeah, it's into December. So, all right, we need to get to our guest today. No more of this Mercury stuff, though I'm going to ask her opinion on it too. Our guest today is the fabulous Nicola Humber. As I mentioned, she is an author. She is a coach. She is amazing. And she's she's been somebody that has just been so inspiring to me in the online space. So everybody, please welcome my friend Nicola Humber to the show today. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello. I was just checking whether I was muted or not. Mercury retrograde had got to me.
We scared you, didn't we?
It's getting crazy. What do you think about all this hoopla for Mercury retrograde, Nicola?
Wow. I'm all about seeing anything like this as kind of an opportunity to go inwards and to notice what comes up and just be interested about that and curious and like you were talking about taking responsibility for it. I mean, I can't remember how many times a year Mercury retrograde happens. Is it 4 times a year that
it's 3 to 4, yeah, depending.
You know, and it's 3 weeks at a time. So, you know, if we're going to rule out that much, and you know, that doesn't take into account kind of the pre-shadow and the post-shadow. It's like, oh, come on, it's going to be like half the year where we're just like, oh no, I can't do anything because it's a really so it's like, no. I mean, I'm like running a writing challenge next week, which is going to be, you know, some technical pieces to that because it's online. And I'm also launching a new part of my business next week. And it's like, I didn't even think about it being in Mercury retrograde, but I don't let it freak me out.
Yeah. You're just brave is all it is. I think you knew it was there, but you just wanted to push those boundaries.
Do it anyway. Laugh in the face of Mercury retrograde.
Right.
You said that. Everyone's like,
oh my gosh. Well,
audience is like,
that's it now. Everything is going to go wrong.
Now we'll send good energy vibes that way, so nothing bad.
Well, you know, as Jessica was saying, if you think that something is going to go wrong, if you're thinking, oh my goodness, for the next 3 weeks, all of my tech stuff's going to go wrong, my communication's going to be challenging, then it will be. So I just it's
going to be awesome.
Carry on as normal. Yeah.
I mean, we could flip it, right? We could flip it and say, imagine if at the start of we knew Mercury retrograde was coming and we choose to say this Mercury retrograde is going to be amazing. Like it's going to bring up awesome things and it's going to be a great experience. Imagine if we chose to say that instead, how it would change it.
Well, I really think it is an opportunity to look at the way, you know, because Mercury is about communication. It is an opportunity to look at the way that we communicate and the way other people communicate with us and notice what comes up around that. And you know, if we I think, you know, we were talking about looking to the past as well. If any kind of old stuff kind of bubbles up to the surface, then, you know, it's an opportunity to look at it and maybe do some work around it and shift it. So it's all good. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It'll keep coming up. It'll keep coming up if you don't kind of recognize it and do something to shift it. So, you know, it's an opportunity to be really conscious about that, I guess.
Right.
Good points. I'm really excited to have you on today because I think that, you know, that everybody can relate to having a nudge to do something in their lives and not listening and being stubborn and not following the path that they should. in the moment. So I would love for you to start out by sharing today what things kind of were like in your life before you had your breakthrough moment.
Well, before I had my breakthrough moment, which and it was almost exactly 10 years ago, I was just thinking about it. It's probably almost to the date, you know, it was around November 2008, in finance, in a corporate environment. And I'd worked in finance for many years. One of my books is called Heal You're in a Good Girl. And I think, you know, I was like the archetypal good girl. I'd made decisions throughout my life to kind of hold on that role of being a good girl, doing things properly, doing things the right way. And that had led me into finance. That wasn't really a plan. I'd kind of drifted into it and stayed in that industry because it felt like a solid kind of proper job. And there was a nice, clear career path that I could have followed. But I wasn't happy. I mean, I was happy for a time, but it got to a point where I was in my mid to late 30s, and I was just noticing I was becoming more and more unhappy in my life and what I was doing. I'd been making some pretty awful choices when it came to relation. And yeah, my life, it just felt like it was completely stuck. So I was in this place where I knew I was unhappy. I knew that I felt stuck, but I had no clue what I wanted to do. And I'd moved to another company because I thought that might shift things for me. But 10 years ago in 2008, you know, I was a few weeks into this new role and it was, sorry, Mercury retrograde is getting to my throat today. It was,
Sorry.
It was around the time, it was just after kind of the financial crisis in 2008 as well. So there was all of this stuff kind of going on. But like I said, I had no clue what else I could do. So yeah, I was in this place of just not knowing.
And what were some of the things that were there specific areas that you feel like you were the most unhappy with, that you felt the most stuck? Like, what were the things that stuck out for you the most as that, like, this really needs to change?
Definitely. I mean, looking back, I would say it was in terms of life purpose. I knew I wasn't fulfilling my purpose, but I don't think I would have kind of labeled it as that then. I didn't really think about life purpose. I just knew that, you know, for 8-9 hours a day, I was going to do a job that I wasn't happy in, sitting in an office, doing work that I was in no way passionate about. And I just felt, and the impact of doing that made me feel like I wasn't fully alive. And I think it was because I didn't have that sense of purpose. You know, I was good at my job and I'd done well. And from the outside, people probably thought, oh yeah, you know, Nick's doing really well. She's kind of successful. But I inside, I didn't feel like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think we can probably feel many areas of our lives, you know, that need a change when we have that underlying sense of, you know, I'm just not on the path that I'm supposed to be on right now. So what did you start to do when you had this realization? Like, what was your train of thought? What were your next steps?
Well, like I said, I was in this place of not knowing, and I'd been thinking about this for a couple of years, really, leading up to this point. And I'd tried different things. I'd thought about retraining as a counselor. I'd trained in like more physical therapies like reflexology and massage, and I've been doing kind of bits and pieces of that alongside my proper job. but none of it really grabbed me, and it didn't feel like something that I could leave my job in finance to go and pursue. So I was really in this place, like I said, of not knowing, and just asking the question. Like every day in my lunch break, I would go either to a coffee shop or I would go and sit on a bench in the park opposite my office. And just, I think the question was just going over and over in my mind, you know, what can I do? And I was looking for signs. And again, I didn't really think in that way at the time. It's like I was a different kind of person. But that's what I was doing. I was looking for the answer for me. I was looking for the signs, and I was ready to make that change.
So I can totally relate, because I did the good girl thing, and all my family was in government work, and so that was the path that I went, and I did really, really well with it, and got very high in that industry. But I didn't feel, I was miserable. But I didn't, like you, I didn't know at the time that I was miserable because it was my job. I just thought I was just a miserable human being in general. Just because everything,
Yeah.
you know, because once one area is not doing well in your life, it all just kind of not seems to be doing well. You know, your personal life, your work life. So as you were sitting in the coffee shop or the restaurant looking for signs, what sign do you think you actually got that said, this is it? Okay, this is what I need to do with my life at that point.
Well, I actually got a really clear sign, and it was when I'd gone on a weekend break to a health spa with my sister, and it was just like a couple of days. It's something we did quite regularly, you know, particularly as I wasn't happy at my job. I just wanted to kind of get away and do different things. And at this health spa, there was a talk by a hypnotherapist. And yeah, she was doing this kind of demonstration. So my sister and I went along to it. And it's not the sort of thing that we would normally have done when we were on this kind of like weekend. I was like, well, let's go, you know, let's go and check it out. And to be honest, the hypnotherapist who was doing the demonstration, she was a bit bonkers. She was quite eccentric, like this older woman. She wasn't like any hypnotherapist that I've kind of known since. But there was something about what she did, and talking about the power of the subconscious mind. And she was just quite out there. And it was almost like in that moment, just watching her and the things she was talking about, it like created this kind of knowing in me. I was like, I think this is what I'm meant to do. And it wasn't, you know, like I said, I'd looked at kind of doing counseling, like training as a counselor in the past, but that wasn't quite it. Whereas the hypnotherapy, it felt deeper, it felt more creative. And I just thought I think this is, you know, what my next step, I think this is what I'm meant to do. So pretty much like as soon as I went home after that weekend, I started exploring the possibility of training as a hypnotherapist, and found a course that looked really good. And I just thought, yeah, I'm going to do this. And it was a year's training course initially. It was starting the next spring. And I thought, look, if I'm going to do this, then I'm going to leave my job in finance. I got a part-time job to support myself whilst I was retraining. And that, yeah, I just made this, and it was like a really intuitive, instinctive decision that I made. And I think a lot of people thought I was crazy at the time. I probably still do now, actually.
I was going to say, you're actually just taking my question I have of like, yeah. What did people around you, once you went from like the finances, like, you know, safe, secure, and then moving over to a hypnotist, and you're just like, yeah.
I know.
So who did you find like around you that was probably the most shocked at this, and who was the most accepting of it?
I'm quite fortunate, actually. My close family, at the time, I wasn't I wasn't married, I was single. And I think that kind of helped because I just had to think about myself. I didn't have to think about anybody else when I was making this decision. And my close family, like my sister totally gets it. You know, she's on a very similar path to me. And my parents, they've always been really supportive. And they may have thought, oh my goodness, what on earth is she doing now? You know, but they didn't say that to me. I don't think they said that to me. So, you know, I did feel quite supported, but I didn't really know anyone else who was doing something completely like this. And certainly not anyone. I mean, actually, my sister is a massage therapist and she's grown a very successful business doing that. So, you know, she was kind of a role model to me, but I didn't really know anybody else who had started their own business or was doing this kind of work. So it was really a leap into the unknown. My boss at the job that I'd like literally only been in a few months, when I went to tell her that I was leaving to retrain to be a hypnotherapist, she just looked at me as if I was insane. They were like, I think they thought, I can't believe we recruited this woman and we need to get her out of here as soon as possible because she is quite obviously nuts. Yeah,
Oh,
that was
funny.
probably kind of the most, it was funny.
The most extreme
and it just
of the,
made
yeah.
me realize, yeah, this is not the right place. Yeah, it was. That was the most extreme reaction to my face, you know.
I love that.
Like
To
I
my
said,
face.
other people might have. Yeah, I don't know what other people were saying. But like I said, you know, because I was single, it felt like a really like a relatively easy decision for me to make. I've since then met my husband, and you know, I met him when I was doing my training to be a hypnotherapist, and we'd actually been at school together like 20 years before, and then we met up. We hadn't seen each other in the interim, and we met up, and he was like, well, what are you doing now? And I'm like, oh, I'm training to be a hypnotherapist. So and he's very logical, he's an engineer. So if I'd been with him at the time and been in finance, doing really well, really secure, and had said to him, oh, actually, I've decided to retrain to be a hypnotherapist, I'm not sure about the reaction I would have got. I don't know if he would have.
Yeah, that's exactly it. As somebody who's an engineer,
we didn't
very
have to
logical.
experience that. I don't really know the decision. Exactly. He still doesn't really get what I do. But.
It's okay. He doesn't need to always get it. As long as you're happy, right?
He's very supportive. Yeah, he's very supportive, but I don't think he quite understands what I do. Yeah, so it was an interesting time, and it's continued to be interesting. I think the thing with a breakthrough or this kind of turning point, and this is what I imagined at the time, is like, okay, I've made this decision, that's it now. You know, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow this new path and everything will fall into place. And of course, I'm sure we all know that that doesn't happen. And it's been, you know, it's kind of been one breakthrough after another ever since then. And for the first few years, I was like, oh my goodness, like there's continually something coming up, or feeling like I'm making decisions that are taking me in like new directions all the time. And at first that was really quite unsettling and quite, I guess it's kind of this kind of process of growth, and which felt quite uncomfortable. Now I kind of got used to it, just accept that, you know, that it is a process of continual change and like evolution, which, you know, although it can be uncomfortable at times, I've kind of recognized it's probably never going to end. I don't think I'll ever get to a point where it's like, yes, I'm just going to relax up now. I'm done.
Okay, I'm just curious. Is it like because I've never tried hypnotherapy. I've always wanted to. Obviously, I meditate a lot. Is it like do you yourself practice hypnotherapy? Like, do you have someone that does that for you, or do you just go into a meditative state yourself?
I mean, I have had hypnotherapy in the past. And to be honest, what I do now when I'm working with clients, I kind of tend to blend together hypnotherapy, like hypnosis, and like I'm trained in emotional freedom technique and matrix, all of these different approaches that I've trained in. So I tend to blend them all together. But yeah, I mean, it is very similar to being in that kind of meditative state. And that's what I will tend to do for myself. I will just kind of drift off and, you know, whatever I want to kind of focus on, then I will do that and connect with whatever I need to connect with. So it's such interesting work. I mean, I was just working with a client this week, and the experiences that people have when they're in hypnosis, when they're in this kind of trance state, it's just so powerful. I mean, I'm always in awe of it afterwards when they're telling me what they've experienced. It's like, wow, that's so cool. It's like this woman had a really felt experience of her soul being present with her during this session this week, and it's like, wow, that's just, yeah, it's just the most amazing work. It doesn't compare to being in finance.
Okay. I imagine your days are a lot more enjoyable and exciting to, you know,
Yeah,
take on than before.
exactly. It's
numbers.
different. Yeah, completely different.
So I had met Nicola a couple years ago now, and it was before she wrote this lovely book. We've talked about The Good Girl a couple times today. She wrote this book called Heal Your Inner Good Girl, and this is it's got these beautiful colors on the cover and this cute writing. It is a kick in the rear end.
Yeah,
it's a kick in the rear end. Let's just be honest about that. Because I think many of us can, like I said in the beginning of the show, can really relate to, you know, being the good girl, you know, and doing what they feel like everybody else wants them to do. And even doing what we think subconsciously that we're supposed to do. Like we've got all this stuff going on, it must be Mercury retrograde every day. But I would love to ask you with the birth of this book, and now you have a new book out called Unbound. What are some of the things that you've shared in those two? Oh yes, that book. What are some of the things that you've shared in both of those books that that you've used in your own life that really helped you to make this transition from a life that didn't feel authentic to you to, you know, kind of, I mean, you're just all worldly now, you're going everywhere and you're working with women everywhere. Like, what are some of the things in those books that you've really been your biggest moments in your life to help you?
I think, you know, the big thing and both books are very, there's a strong connection between both books. And I think the thing that stands out is this idea of the unbound self, which is kind of the fullest, freest expression of who we are. And that came through when I was writing Heal Your Inner Good Girl. I was thinking, well, kind of and again, I don't think this was necessarily a conscious process, but I wanted to I guess I wanted to take the reader on a journey from recognizing that they have all of these good girl behaviors and beliefs going on that keep us stuck in these particular roles that we play in our life. And I wanted to give away that we could move beyond that. And so this idea of the unbound self came through, and the word unbound, you know, this came to me quite intuitively again when I was doing some work around my core desired feelings, you know, Danielle Laporte's core desired feelings the word, I was thinking that freedom was one of my key values, which it is, but the word freedom didn't really do it for me. It's like, that's not compelling enough. So I was looking in a thesaurus to like look at what, you know, what were similar words to freedom, and saw the word unbound. And it's that idea that something has previously been bound, it's been restricted. And that's how I felt for like the first 36, 37 years of my life, really, that I was kind of bound, you know, mostly by myself and my own beliefs about what I could do in the world. So it's that idea of the unbound self, which always kind of creates this sense of like possibility and freedom within me. So I have like a meditation, which I talk about in Heal Your Inner Good Girl, where you can connect with your unbound self. And, you know, I did that myself just this week. I didn't listen to the meditation, but I was in bed and I'm like, okay, what does my unbound self want to share with me? And the way I experience my unbound self has just shifted so much since I first connected with her when I was writing Heal Your Inner Good Girl. She was quite angry actually at that time, I think, because I'd been holding her back for so long. And when I connected with her, she was really kind of dark and quite bitchy, and it felt there was a lot of rage in her because I think I'd been suppressing a lot of rage and anger, which I think a lot of women do, because that's what we're taught to do. So she was quite scary when I first met her, and now, yeah, she's really shifted. Like this week when I connected with her, there's a lot more light, and she's a lot more, she feels a lot gentler and a lot more expansive. So it's very interesting for me to experience that personally, and also for other people. Like other women really tend to resonate with that idea of the unbound self. Yeah.
It really is a beautiful, beautiful progression of, you know, in Heal Your Inner Good Girl, it really was a lot about kind of throwing away these ideas that we have from others and from outside sources, and kind of embracing who we are, and then moving into Unbound. Like, now that you've done that, what is it that you really want? Like, how, I just see it as such a beautiful progression from one to the other. Is that how you feel about the two as well?
Yeah, I do. And I hadn't planned that when I wrote Heal Your Inner Good Girl. I hadn't planned to write a second book. I was like, okay, that's done. I've written my first book. That's amazing. But actually, very soon afterwards, I started to feel this calling to write another book, which would be more focused on the idea of the unbound self. It's like Heal Your Inner Good Girl was based on my journey up until when I had my breakthrough, and maybe for the first 2 or 3 years after that. Whereas Unbound is like, okay, well, what happens when you start to move beyond the inner good girl? Because there are a whole new set of challenges then. It's not like it just falls into place, like I said. And there are very real challenges of living an unbound life, because not everyone gets it. And it can feel quite lonely at times, because some of the people around you are maybe not completely getting what you're doing and the choices you're making. And I think because we're kind of taught to generally live in a particular sort of way and follow this set path, when we start to take ourselves off that, yeah, it's like we can't go in the unknown, and we're the ones who have to be kind of making these new paths for ourselves. And Unbound really about the challenges that come with that, and how we can support ourselves when we're really kind of walking the unbound path.
So there are challenges then. It's not just every day's cupcakes and rainbows once we decide to be unbound, right?
Sorry. I'm very honest about that.
Well, darn. I thought we were gonna get
it's
something
not.
special.
Sorry. Go back to being the good girl. Yeah. If you want your cupcake. No, I mean, there's a real, there's a real depth and richness, I think, to walking the unbound path. And you get to be more of yourself and to bring that to the world and to express that. But yeah, it is, well, there's all sorts of challenges related to that. Yeah. It's all good, you know. We'll talk Mercury retrograde. We can go, oh my goodness, this is so difficult, and there's all of this stuff coming up, and I don't know what to do about it, and you know, I'm just going to go and hide in a corner. Or we can be like, okay, you know, bring it on. And actually, any challenges that come up are a way of us accessing more of ourselves, I think, and you know, being able to live a more fully expressed life, if that makes sense.
So speaking of being unbound and challenges in our lives, so what would you say is one of the most important things for you to do when you're having that uncomfortableness with working with your unbound self? What is one tool that you use to kind of get yourself moving in the direction that you need to move for the unbound self?
Yeah. Well, I talk about, actually in Unbound, I talk about a number of practices that help us with the challenges that come up when we're walking an unbound path. And they tend to be practices rather than tools. We can use tools within those practices, but one that I've been talking about this week actually is the practice of deep agreement. And it's where, rather than trying to move away from anything that we find challenging or uncomfortable, that we choose to move towards it. So, which feels really counterintuitive. And the way I kind of came to this is I was, and this is like a bit of a random example, but it might help things to make sense for you. I was out for a walk one day in Rochester in upstate New York, where I'm actually based now. And it's the first time I'd been there in April. It was Easter. And back in the UK, like spring was coming, warm weather was coming, and I was out for a walk, and it was snowing, it was cold. I had my big winter coat on, and I was like, oh, come on, it's April, it's Easter. I really wish it was warmer. I, you know, got all these warm clothes, like summer clothes with me, and I really want to start wearing my sandals and things. I was getting really grumpy about it. And in this place of like, oh, I want this to change, resistance. And then I just thought, well, look, what if I chose to, and the words deep agreement came to me, what if I chose to be in deep agreement with what I'm experiencing now? And just asking that question just created this kind of softening, this opening. And I just felt this sense of like release. It's like, okay, I can choose to actually accept and agree with this, or I can just be really grumpy and spend all this energy wishing it was different. It's not going to be. So this is something I find really helpful, like with whatever's coming up in my life. It's like, okay, what if I could choose to be in agreement with this? And like I said, it feels counterintuitive because some of the stuff, it's like, well, why would you want to be in agreement with that? But actually it helps you to be in a more resourceful place, and rather being in this place of like tension and constriction, like, oh, I really want it to change. In my experience, that never changes anything when we're in that place. Whereas if you can just be like, okay, I'm going to be open to this. I'm going to, you know, choose to send approval to this and it just shifts automatically. You're doing it from in this, it creates this sense of openness and a softening that's really powerful.
Doesn't that go beautifully with our hot topic today?
Exactly. It's exactly what I was just thinking. You know, it's like, okay, rather than like, oh, Mercury retrograde, it's like, okay, I'm going to choose to be How can I choose to be in deep agreement with Mercury retrograde?
Right. That was just what I was just getting ready to say. So we need to instead say, I choose to be in agreement with Mercury retrograde, right?
Yeah.
That's the words. Okay.
And I think it's really good to do that as a question, to ask the question rather than going, I am in deep agreement, because the subconscious mind, sometimes if we say can be the problem with affirmations. Sometimes the subconscious mind recognizes, no, you're not in agreement with that. Whereas if you ask the question, I wonder if I could choose to be in deep agreement with this, or how could I be in deep agreement with this? It gives you a way in, the subconscious responds more positively to that, because it doesn't fall for it sometimes when we're like, yes, I am, whatever the affirmation is. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm so thankful that you have come on today to share about your story, because like I said, I think that a lot of people maybe, in a little bit of a space of fear, as far as feeling that nudge to follow your instinct, to go on a different path, or even just little tweaks can put us into a space of fear and like, oh, I couldn't leave my job. Are you kidding? I can't do something that other people think is what I should be doing. And so, I just appreciate you sharing your experience, so that people know that if you can get in touch with who you are, and you can get over that fear hurdle, that you can change things for yourself if that's what you choose to do. And I definitely encourage everybody to check out Heal Your Inner Good Girl and
Unbound.
Unbound.
It's not so colorful, this one. It's kind of, it's like, it's not trying to be all nice.
Yeah, that one's a little, that covers a little more truthful. We kept it real this time.
Exactly. Yeah, my unbound self was like, right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nicola, for being here. And you guys can check out Nicola's website, and her Facebook link, and all of that is in the description of the video. So make sure you check her out. And thank you again for being here, Nicola.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, ladies. So let's have a conversation. How many of you have ever felt like you had to be the good girl?
Can I have like 10 hands?
I was like, I only have 2 hands. Everyone,
yeah. I've only been through her book 3 or 4 times.
Just a few.
Now I'm going to go see if my library has any of those books, so that I can actually start reading those ones now. Not that I have enough books on my list as it is, but
it's one of those, like, Donna and I are in a book club together, and it's, we talk about revisiting, like, Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life every year at the beginning of the year, so you can, this is kind of one of those, it's one of those things that I feel like is it's definitely a wake-up call kind of book, but it's also something that you can, I think it's a practice to recognize, are we following our intuition? Are we doing what feels authentic for us? Or are we still kind of falling into those patterns once in a while? Are we bound in some way by, something?
by society, by family, by ourselves, like our own thoughts. That's the thing. Like our ego gets in the way of a lot of stuff. And that's where a lot of us are bound, is by the ego. It's like, oh, you can't do that. Meanwhile, it's like, yeah, you can. You just need to get over that hump of the fear of it. So yeah.
And I think waking yourself up too, and realizing that, hey, wait a minute, why can't I? Ask it, and like she said earlier, asking those questions and posing it as a question versus, I want to do this, asking, why can't I do this? Or and going at it from that direction. And then that kind of calms the ego down enough to make you go, well, maybe so. Let's look into that. Yeah. So I was really glad that she said that, because that was kind of what I was trying to get her, the direction I was trying to get her to go in. So that was kind of cool how that all just kind of played out.
Yeah. What do you think, Tara? Are you a good girl?
She's juicy girl.
Are you
Because
living an
that's choos-
unbound life, Tara? That's what I want to know.
Release the chains, release the chains. I have to say, I love what she talked about with in regards to affirmations and thinking about your affirmations, because she brought up a really good point about the subconscious mind. And if you're blocked towards something and you're using an affirmation that subconsciously you don't know that you're blocking that, right? When you're talking about rewiring those neural pathways, I think that was a really great point that she said, to at least open the channels that I would be open to this, or that was a really something to think about when you're picking those and choosing those affirmations. Or if you're finding, I think, that you're coming up against a block, go, why? Maybe I should shift how I'm saying it or affirming that. And I think it just kind of opens the door. It keeps the spectrum broader, right? For the things to come in versus like that set path,
Yeah. When we've talked about, so I found it really interesting that a lot of the things that we've talked about today are really, a beautiful combination of many things that we've talked about on the show this season. We've talked about that snowball effect that happens when you have one breakthrough and then it's like, oh, here comes 20 more. And then we've talked about that same thing with Jamad before when he's been on about the law of attraction. And, if you're focused on one specific thing, like talking about the affirmations, if you're not in that vibration of what you're saying and what it is that you want, you're not going to get it anyway. Like, you have to feel it. It's not enough to just say, I am healthy and well. Like, you've got to get in the vibration of feeling it, I think.
And I remember one of the episodes that we were on, the guest had said she had to say that affirmation so many times before she started actually believing it herself. And that's what it is. It's the believing that affirmation, but not just to stop at like 1 or 2 times or whatever. It's changing it in a way that your subconscious and your conscious is going to actually be like, okay, yes, I can say it like this and I can continue it, because eventually, yes, it's that repetitiveness. It's not just that, oh, I'm going to try 5 times. It didn't work. Sorry, Mercury retrograde. That's why. No. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
Affirmations aren't working because Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, I had to throw that in.
Well, and I think that too is another problem, that a lot of people want to do something and they want it to be instant gratification, right? And we've talked about that on a couple of episodes. Is that instant gratification? Okay, I've said this 5 times. Why don't I believe it? Instead of going, okay, what is my belief system in this moment that is keeping me from resonating with this affirmation, and kind of coming at it from that standpoint. And the thing of it is too, is I feel like it's a process and it takes time, and it's not something that you can do typically in a day or 2 days or a month, or sometimes you're working on it for years. It's not a quick, easy fix.
Well, unbounding that girl is not going to be easy.
Right, because that girl's been bounded for a really long time, so she's not going to unbound overnight.
Why not?
I don't know. I wish it happened
like
that way.
Get in gear, woman.
Cut each other's bounding.
Yeah, I cut everyone's bounding.
Yeah.
You cut Heather's, you cut Tara's.
Well, I think that's why too, you got to be kind with yourself when you're working through these processes, because I think it's an average of 66 days to change a habit. So, when you think about that, like, you have to really be consistent and put in the time and the work. And it sounds easy to say, I'm just going to say this one little thing, but are you really doing it every day? Are you taking that? And it doesn't have to be long. It could be like less than 30 seconds of your time, but it's just creating that consistent pattern over time. And that's what's going to help to, change those patterns and those those behaviors, right? Or
that's
habits.
Key is changing your behavior as well. Because you can say it as many times as you want, but if you say, oh, I'm happy and healthy or whatever, but you're still eating, McDonald's 5 days a week, whatever, et cetera, and doing all that stuff, sorry, you're not going to get healthy and happy.
It may say Happy Meal, friends, but it's really
my food too. I can't just like say it and it happens.
No, but you can't just say it. That's the thing. That's what they like. A lot of people say is, it's not just saying it. You have to match the actions so that your body and that subconscious actually goes, oh, right. So now we can start being, because I'm proving to you now that this is something that I want to do.
Mhm.
When I think in regards to what Jess was saying too about talking being in the vibrational space, which Jamad talks about a lot, as you mentioned, doing things that raise your vibration and that put you in a higher resonance level when you're doing these things, whether if that comes through, sounds, music, chanting, mantra, that kind of stuff, or even just tools like crystals and salt lab, like things that have higher vibrational properties that you can use to assist you with that, I think is something kind of, you can think about.
Mhm.
Or doing something that you actually enjoy doing, like a
Right.
hobby,
Yeah.
like painting or anything like that, like something you pick up.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. Change your frequencies and your
Oh, is that our time's
Is
up?
that a horn?
That's it.
Sorry.
That was Donna's truck. I was waiting. I've been waiting a few episodes for that truck to come by.
I know. It's been doing really good. Nobody's actually texted me. I've told everybody, do not text me at this time. And
Okay, Donna's friends out there. This is episode 20, people. Get with the program.
Or Jess, it's coming for you.
It's not me this time texting you.
No,
It's Mercury. You're welcome.
Oh, right. Yes.
Mercury's texting me to tell me that it's coming soon. And am I feeling it?
Hmm. I don't know. Well, we certainly felt the vibration of your phone.
I'm gonna have to one episode before we're done blooper, just keep texting Donna so it's going off, and Jess will be freaking out,
So next week,
and I'll be laughing.
we've got 2 episodes left, don't we?
Yes.
That's it.
That's crazy. So do it next week there. That's all you got.
We got you two on
Jess
next
is-
week. It's you two. So there you go.
We are going to be trouble
No.
for Miss Donna next week. All right, everybody, we got to wrap it up here. We could yap on forever, the 4 of us here. So we're going to start wrapping things up a little bit. I want to give a big thank you to our guest, Nicola, today. And of course, our fabulous panelists, Miss Heather Clark, our declutter coach and consultant, and Miss Tara Abram, our juicy, lovely woman.
You're like, how do I know where I was going with that?
Mercury. I'm sorry. It's Mercury. It's all Mercury's fault. Okay. So back on track.
Yeah.
I would encourage you guys to check out the links in the description of the video for all of us that are hosts, guests, panelists on the show, and visit the groups, visit the websites, visit the Facebook pages, because there's lots of goodness going on there. And I also want to re-mention that we are officially booking for seasons 2 and 3 in 2019 for the Breakthrough. We're looking for a couple of panelists, and we're also looking for lots of fabulous guests. We want to hear your stories. So be looking on our pages after the show for a post where you can request more information on that. So be sure that you do that. And also, what else was I going to say? Happy Mercury retrograde, everybody. I'm Jessica Dugas, intuitive mentor and energy healer.
And I'm Donna Brown, a holistic wellness practitioner, and this has been The Breakthrough. Join us next week when we will be joined again by our amazing and talented panelists, Miss Heather Clark and Tara Abrams, along with our guest, Effie, and I'm not going to demolish his name and say his last name, so we're just going to call him Effie. When he will be sharing his breakthrough moment on Streets to Success. That'll be another good one.
He has a powerful, powerful story, you guys. I've just the most amazing transformation. You're going to be blown away next week, and he's going to be our last guest.
Is next week our last show?
No, he's our last guest. Then all of our fabulous
that's right. That's
panelists
right.
will be on
That's
the
right.
list.
Sorry. I was like, wait a minute. I thought we just said 2. Sorry. Mercury got into my head.
All right.
Guys. We look forward to seeing you guys next week, same time, same place, 12 p.m. Central, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.